our poem. So we begin in verse Gimel with a description of Bria. So this is again Moshe Rabbeinu, we believe, telling us about what we should be thankful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for. Ki, kale, power. Kale, Aleph Lamed, is the generic Hebrew word for God. And when we use it, we mean God with a capital G, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when Goyim use it, or is a reference to Goyim, then it's a small g, and it means like, they're false gods. So it's a generic term for God. Ki kel gadol, because a great power is Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is the real name, the personal name for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for God. Because God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, our God, is the great power, Umelech Gadol, and a great monarch. I'll call, I put a line in this word at the end of verse Gimel, but most Meforshim say that word is Chol, and should be Elohim, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is a great king over all those other powers. Now, those other powers of nature, right, were made by the Goyim into gods. In other words, God is in charge of weather, okay? So the Goyim made a god of weather. God controls the oceans. The other people made a god for the oceans. Now, so they took the Elohim, the powers of the universe, which we believe are all within HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is why that word is in the plural. Because even though it's only one God, the powers within God are many and multifaceted. So this time it can't help us. But sometimes in Tanakh, we use the word Elohim, meaning the false gods, and then the verb with it will be in the plural. But sometimes we use it, most of the time we use it, like in the first parak of Breshit. We use it Elokim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we mean God because he's got all of these powers. Everything is controlled by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then we use a singular verb with it. Bereshit bara, that's singular, Elokim. But we have psukim, and especially Yeshayahu, where the term Elohim is used, and there's a plural verb with it because he's talking about the false gods. But here it just means the powers of nature. Now, I'm saying the powers of nature. Some Meforshim say it means malachim, God's angels. But God's angels quite often are God's messengers to control nature. In other words, that there are people that believe. I'm not a big scholar in angelology, but some people say that not only is there a different angel for each nation, except for the Jews, who we are able to connect directly with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. We don't have an angel. That's good. That's a better thing. But some people say there's also an angel for every, there's an angel in charge of rain, there's an angel in charge, and there's actually I can't remember his name. There was a scholar. He wasn't a rabbi, but he was a very firm man in Tel Aviv. And in the 40s and the 50s, he was a librarian, and he wrote this book listing all the names of the angels in Jewish tradition. And there was over 2,000 names of angels that, and different, mostly Kabbalistic. Some are more, some are in Tanakh. I mean, you get a couple of dozen in Tanakh, but the Ofanim, Srafim, we have those, but there are a lot of them were names when I looked at the work, I didn't recognize most of them, but most of that, each one of them had like a specific area that they were in charge of. Okay, so this Elohim, most people believe is Chol. Some people say it does refer back to Hashem and the powers of Hashem, but generally, I put the line there because it's an argument, but generally people would write this word Elohim without the line in it, because it means all those powers. So that's God is great, controls the powers of the universe. Dalit, asher biyado mechkarei aretz. Asher biyado, which within the hand of God are all of the investigations, are all of the studies, are all of the knowledge of the world. In other words, mechkarei means all of those areas, meet all the ologies, meteorology, what's metal? What study of metal, study of geology, all of the ologies, right, are in that mechkarei, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only being who truly understands everything that happens in nature. We spend a lot of effort trying to understand everything that's going on. And Baruch Hashem, they've come so far in medicine, they've come so far in a lot of areas, okay? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only being that truly has gotten to the bottom of everything that goes on in the physical universe. Asher biyado mechkarei aretz. And it was wonderful to hear that there was the Nobel Prize winner for establishing the Big Bang Theory as the model for modern cosmology, methodology, right? Was a Jewish man who was not frum. His name was Arno Penzias, and he became traditional. I don't want to say he became Orthodox, but he became a shul goer, and became, after he came up with this idea, because he said if there was an act of creation, the Big Bang, then there must be a creator, and he just became so enamored of the concept of God and tried to develop a relationship with Hashem, because he just saw nature as being so beyond us. And he got a little glimpse. He's one of the smartest people I ever met. I met him twice. He lived in Edison, New Jersey. He's still alive, but he's not active anymore. And it was very inspiring to listen to him. We brought him once to speak to NCS Flyers. It was very inspiring to listen to him. And what he was saying is what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying in this pasuk. Asher biyado mechkarei aretz. All of these deep studies of the universe, they're in the hand of God. They're all, it's like we work so hard to get a glimpse of it, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're in his hand. I mean, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's an open book, and all this stuff is like, HaKadosh Baruch Hu understands it all. But we don't. We get just a tiny glimpse of it, and we're awestruck by it. V'tovot harimla, and literally that means the appearance of the mountains are to him. But again, it means that the entirety of the universe is not only created by Hashem, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu understands everything about it. And everything about it is mamash within the realm and the understanding of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he's the only one that truly fathoms it all. And okay. You know what I find interesting about science? Editorial comment here. And I think it's interesting, I think it's cool. Every great discovery that seems to answer some major question about the universe presents us with new questions. And the whole idea is everything about our universe is infinite. In other words, and this is not only true on the cosmological level. Every time we see something out there, there's more. And this was just like a doorway to a new area. It's true on the microscopic level. When you look at, the people that are studying, molecular level, every time they're always finding smaller stuff. So in both directions, it's infinite. When the bigger you get, there's more, and the smaller you get, there's always something smaller. It's just remarkable. And for us, who ma'aminim, b'nei ma'aminim, for us, this is just exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu is talking about. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu just gave us a world that is so complicated, that is just so sophisticated, that we just get a glimpse of it. The only one who truly fathoms it is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself.
What is the meaning of Tawafel?
Appearances.
Oh.
Appearances. You might want to say the phenomenon or the phenomena of the mountains. It might be a nice translation for that. Hey, Asher Lo Hayam. For us, this seems redundant, but for pre-modern humans, it wasn't redundant, because those people were assigning everything, a god for mountains, a god for oceans. So for Moshe Rabbeinu to specify these other areas is important, because he was answering what was being said by the Umot Olam, the Gentiles around us. Asher Lo Hayam, he controls the sea. V'hu asahu, and he made it. The control of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is absolute, but also the ownership is absolute, because Hashem is both the creator and the only one that truly understands it. It was fascinating. I don't know if any of you saw the movie The Current War, which is about the big fight. It wasn't actually such a good movie, but I like some of the actors in it. It was a big fight between Edison and Tesla about electricity. So you could say, Edison invented the light bulb, but he didn't understand it. Tesla understood it better. So it's like we might invent something because we're so curious, and in the case of Edison, because he was so stubborn. There were thousands of attempts to find the right filament. He just worked at it, but he didn't truly get how it worked. And that's why he ended up losing to Tesla and Westinghouse on alternating current instead of a direct current. I don't want to go through the whole movie, but the point is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on the other hand, makes it, owns it, and truly fathoms it to, totally. And this is something that's not true of humans. We may even invent something, we still don't necessarily understand it, right? Penicillin, when it was first invented, it was a mistake, it was an accident. And at first, people didn't understand how it worked, right? It was, I think it was on toast that went bad, that they first saw, the penicillin, the penicillin phenomenon. But it doesn't make a difference. But the fact that we invented something doesn't mean we necessarily understand it. But that's true of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Yabeshet Yadav Yitzhara, and the dry land was formed by the divine hands. So it doesn't there's no difference. Dry land, oceans, earth, heaven, this solar system, the next galaxy, everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's how we start Shabbat. We start Shabbat by appreciating Briat Olam and the world around us. We're supposed to, every week, we're supposed to feel two things: Maseh Bereshit, the Hashgacha Klalit of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then we're going to come to the second aspect, which is Yitziat Mitzrayim. We don't mention that specifically. We're going to hint at it in the second half of the poem. But in other words, we're supposed to start with appreciating HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving us this amazing world. But then we're supposed to appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the amazingly complex relationship we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu historically as the Jewish people. And that's what's coming up next. Once we start to appreciate in Gimel, Dalet, and Hey, the amazing world that we live in, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, to try to fathom how amazing it is and to show thanks to Hashem, then we get to the next level, which is of course Avodat Hashem, worshiping and thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for it. Therefore, we go to verse Vav. Bo'u, come with me. This ends up only basically being the Jews. I know that there were some non-Jews that did come with us and left Egypt with the Jews, and there were, especially in the second Beit HaMikdash, many Gentiles that brought korbanot. But come with me basically means the Jews. Basically means Ba'u nishtachaveh v'nichra'ah nivracha lifnei Hashem oseinu. Come, let us. Okay, I'm going to translate these words the following way, and then we have to try to understand them. Bow, prostrate, and bless before God who made us. Now, apparently, pshat in this verse is based upon the behavior in the Mishkan with Moshe Rabbeinu and later in the Beit HaMikdash, which was people came to the Beit HaMikdash. We don't do this. And they would totally bow, nishtachaveh, down on the ground before Hashem. Then they would get on their knees. First they'd lie flat. Then they'd get on their knees. And only then would they pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they began with this bow, total prostration on the ground. Then they were on the knees, and then nivrachu, they did tefillah. So that's the order here. However, many of the Meforshim are very confused by this order. I just gave you a pshat that I saw, gesund. I just saw that's from Amos Chacham in the Mossad Rav Kook, and he said this is reasonable, but most of the Meforshim, especially the Hasidim, didn't like that, and they said this is out of order, because go to Aleinu, and we say V'anachnu modim koreim umishtachavim. So kriya, going down onto your knees, should come before hishtachavaya, which is total prostration. Do you hear the problem? But here we say, lie flat, then go onto your knees. So Amos Chacham says that makes sense because that's what they did in the Beit HaMikdash. But most of the Meforshim, especially the Hasidim that talked about this, said, no, it's out of order. You got to go to your knees before you can, lay flat. You got to start, and that's what we do on Yom Kippur. Modim, korim, shtachavim, v'noflim al pneihem. Right? That's what the order is different. So how do they answer that up? So there a number of people talk about it, but one of the people that talks about it is Rabbi Nachman. And I apologize, is the Sfat Emet. The next Torah I'm going to tell you is Rabbi Nachman if we get to it today. The Sfat Emet, the Gera Rebbe, said what it represents is the 3 tefillot every day. The total prostration to Hashem is the way we feel in the morning when we're so thankful that we could get out of bed and that we could begin the day. That's nishtachaveh. That's the total prostration, the total thanksgiving to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Shachris. Kriya, bowing down, is, according to him, is mincha. Hagasha biyotir lahachnia lahachriya latzmo, because mincha is hachna'ah, is a sense of submission to Hashem. Especially the Hasidim talked about how mincha was the greatest gift that we could give to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because I'm in the middle of my day. And Baruch Hashem, I was always in Jewish education. So getting mincha in was never a problem for me. My problem with mincha was forcing the kids to join me to daven mincha. I was like, mincha was like part of my job, if I can say it that way. But think about it, when you're in an office, especially in the wintertime, getting in mincha is not so easy sometimes. You're in an office, and what do you do? And Baruch Hashem in New York and in Yerushalayim, a lot of office buildings have a mincha at lunchtime or whatever. But historically, and for many, many people, it's very hard to daven mincha. And so to do mincha is hachna'ah. It's a submission to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And then the last one, bracha, is Mariv. Is Mariv, which is a time when before we go to bed, we bless our Kadosh Baruch Hu for everything. It's like a thanksgiving for everything that happened that day, that I made it through it, and so that's the way he understands it on the first level. Are you ready? Then he says, but you know what? It also represents the 3 stages of life. When you're kids, and you start by crawling, you start on the lowest level, and then you get up onto your knees, and then eventually, when you get to be mature, you're able to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to bless HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all that you've accomplished, for where you've come, how far you've come. And then he says, but it also represents the 3 components of the Jew: the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama. The nefesh, which is the life force, is totally prostrate before Hashem. That's the life force. Should recognize that it's nothing without a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's just, if it wasn't for that life force, which, by the way, we share with animals, okay? The life force, if it wasn't for the life force, we'd be, like the rocks. So that's basic. That's the, bottom level. The next level, ruach, which is our connection between us and a Kadosh Baruch Hu, between the physical realm. That's like the pipeline, okay, between us and a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And that is, we're up on our knees, we're a little bit higher. And then the highest is recognizing that we have, and this is only humans, that we have a neshama, which is a chelek me'elokah mima'al within us. We have a little essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within us. And that should inspire us to what he refers to as bracha, blessing, thanking, connecting, working hard to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the first one is, he says, for him is like the pshat, believe it or not. Okay, the pshat I think is like Amos Chacham said in Moshe Rav Kook. But okay, the first one is the 3 davenings of the day. The next one is the 3 stages of life, which he says is like a remez in the pasuk. And then the final level, which is sort of like a sod, is that it represents the 3 components of the human soul. Okay. So that's how he deals with Bo, come. Let's go through these 3 different levels of avodah, of worship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ki hu Elokeinu, because he is our God. Now this line is an argument amongst the Meforshim. The Meforshim said that when you get to Pasuk Zayin, you're definitely only talking about Jews. That before this, it was universal, creation of the world, and the presence of these components in the human body, because most Meforshim, the vast majority of Meforshim, believe that even Gentiles have neshama. I believe that. No, there are some Kabbalists that disagree, but they're the minority, okay? But then there are those who say that by the time you get to verse Zion, we're talking about Jews. Ki hu Elokeinu. Because God, he is Elokeinu, our God, va'anachnu, and we are Am Marito, the nation whom he grazes. He is our ro'eh. We are his tzon, and we are his, and he is our shepherd. Okay, who he so Vitzon Yado, we are the flock of God's hand. In other words, it's more than just a regular shepherd. Yes, a shepherd loves his flock. Remember, all the great Jewish leaders were shepherds. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe. Aaron really wasn't. We put Aaron in there, but he really wasn't a shepherd. Professionally, he never was a shepherd. But Yosef was a shepherd, and David was a shepherd. So the seven giant leaders of the Jewish nation who become the Ushpizin, right, were all shepherds. Well, shepherds, except really for Aaron. Okay, he may have spent a little bit, but okay, but we'll leave that on the side. But they were shepherds because that's the experience. But the real shepherd, capital S, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we are not only the flock that he takes care of, but he also made us. I mean, he's a greater shepherd than all of these wonderful shepherds. I mean, David HaMelech talks in many of his poems about what a great shepherd he was, but he didn't make his sheep. Now comes something amazing, and we're going to have to sadly end with this. The second half of the poem, the break is in the middle of verse 7. So we get to verse 7, and when we get to verse 7, by this point, we're only talking about Jews, according to most of the commentaries. Some commentaries say that even Gentiles should feel that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the shepherd. That's asking a lot. Okay. But once it uses the word Amo, his nation, that seems to exclude, according to most Meforshim, the Gentiles by this point in the poem. But then there's a break in the action, right in the middle of the verse. Hayom, today. And that today, which introduces the second half of the poem, is extremely important, because when is today? Now, pshat is every day. However, how are we using it in Shabbat? Hayom, the way we're using it in the Siddur is Shabbat. This Shabbat, I mean, pshat is when Moshe Rabbeinu wrote it, okay, he meant every day we're supposed to do this. But in the poem, in its use in Kabbalat Shabbat, it means on Shabbat, im kolo tishmun. I'm just going to translate it, but we're going to have to really discuss it next week and finish the poem next week. And then we'll get into a little bit of the other poems next week as well. And now, at this moment, now we can think it as Shabbat, but it should be in every day when you wake up in the morning or when you daven, if we would only listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice. So we're saying two things. The pshat is, every day of your life, you should have a moment in which you commit yourself to really listening, paying attention, and following the voice of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Remember the original picture that they used, symbol that they used for RCA Victor. And they had the dog. The dog. Do you know whose dog that was, by the way? What? No. No, it was Enrico Caruso's.
Oh my gosh.
It was Enrico Caruso's dog. That's the story. I don't know if the story is true, but that one of the early recordings that RCA Victor made was of the great opera singer Enrico Caruso. And when he put the tape on, the dog who used to sit there listening to the great opera singer sing, that the dog ran over to the speaker because he thought his master was into it. But to me, in B'kolo Tishma'u, that's what we have to do with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to strain to hear HaKadosh Baruch Hu's voice that's pshat, every day. And according to the first half of the poem, where do we hear, in quotation marks, God's voice? Through nature. That's pshat. But the way we use this poem is Shabbat is when we're supposed to really do this. Shabbat, we take off time from work. We don't work. We rest for not just because our bodies are just tired, okay? But because we're supposed to use this time of relaxation to hear God's voice. And that's what Shabbat is for. And so we'll continue with this idea on next week. So everybody should have a really Shavua Tov. And now next Shabbos, say Kabbalah Shabbat. Sing it. Let your soul sing when you say these psukim.
At least the first 8.
At least the first 7. We didn't get to 8. We didn't get to 8.
Oh, easier.
Okay. Shavua Tov, everybody.